What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be reviewing the 1974 The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre starring Marilyn Burns and Gunnar Hansen. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, man, I remember when I walked into the video store back in the day, you know, it was mid-80s, somewhere in there, and this is what I saw right here. When I walked into the video store, seeing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm like, okay. Convinced the parents to bring it home for me. They didn't care. That's just how it was back then. Needless to say, I was unable to sleep for a few days afterward. You know, it's very, especially when you're young, it's very realistic. There's no music soundtrack or anything. It's all just sounds and drones and just kind of noises and things like that throughout the film. Of course, except for Fool for a Blonde, which is playing in the van. Love that song. Other than that, there's no real soundtrack to it, okay? Of course, the movie opens with the scrolling text that John Larroquette reads off. That's just iconic in itself right there. It has become a staple of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie whenever you get one. My Texas Chainsaw Massacre video collection here with my VHS, and then of course one of the earlier DVD releases of it. A couple of them there. This one actually had like a meat packaging. I don't have that one. Kind of mad at myself for not getting that early version of it with the meat packaging. But we do have the Black Maria truck. 40th anniversary, I think, was this little special edition package here, which has the bloody apron and a poster and all that stuff inside there. And of course we have the newest 4K release. This is also the same thing here, only the Steelbook version, which does have a exclusive poster inside. So yeah, I have several different versions of this movie, and so, of course, you know I love it. The VHS is not my original VHS. I did have to, unfortunately, track a new one down to add to my collection. It's not new, obviously, but I did have to track another one down to re-add to my collection because the one that I had way back in the day that I ended up buying from the rental store is long gone. And I wore that tape out, and who knows whatever happened to it, but the tape wouldn't work by now anyway. So had to get that back in order to add it back into the collection, but hey, we got it now, right? In the movie, Sally and Franklin are siblings, brother and sister. Along this trip, you can tell that maybe they didn't want to bring Franklin along. Franklin clearly probably wanted to come along, or maybe they didn't have a choice and they had to bring him along. I don't know. But they always write him off, you know. Yeah. He can be annoying. I know a lot of people don't like Franklin, the character, but I actually feel bad for the guy in the story. It's like, man, you know, he's invalid and he has trouble, and they're just like treating him like an afterthought. You know, they go park him somewhere while they go party and have fun and all. You know what I mean? His own sister tries to be patient with him, but ultimately he can be annoying. I mean, hey, family's annoying, right? As they're driving along, they come across this guy on the side of the road hitchhiking. A weird looking fellow, to say the least. He gets in, and of course we all know what happens after that. He's just being very strange and very bizarre. They're looking at him like there's something wrong with him. And you got to ask yourself, well, what's wrong with you for picking him up? I mean, look at this guy. Why would you pick him up? But whatever. We wouldn't have a movie if they didn't pick him up, right? So he starts wanting to look at Franklin's knife because Franklin has a little pocket knife, you know. So he lets him see it, and he's looking at it and whatnot. And then he ends up cutting himself open with it. He takes Franklin's picture and whatnot, and he tries to sell him the picture. But when he declines, he goes and he does like a little voodoo thing where he puts the gunpowder on the picture and the blood and whatever, and then he burns it, and everybody starts freaking out. Then, of course, the hitchhiker takes his own knife, cuts Franklin on the arm, and people are just freaking out. They kick him out of the van. He starts smearing blood all over the van. Maybe he's writing something. That's a debate that people have still. But was he actually writing something, or was he just smearing the blood and it kind of looked like he was writing something? I don't know. To me, it looks like a C, maybe for cannibal. I have no idea. Could be wrong. It's up for debate, right? So, of course, they're all freaked out and they're going down the road. They stop at a gas station. And the gas station, there's the guy sitting out there on the bench. He's just all, just in his own little world, doing his thing. And out comes an old man, the cook, right? He comes out and he's like, what do you boys don't want to go mess around in an old house? You know, all that stuff. And of course they're still going to, but he tries to tell them not to, but I ain't got no gas, right? So meanwhile the other dude's sitting there washing their windows and all that stuff. No gas though, so sends them on their way, and then they finally get to the house, you know, Sally's grandparents' house, I think it was, or parents' house, one of the two, I think it was the grandparents' house. Anyway, they end up there. Of course, they leave Franklin out in the parking lot to just let him sit there. They go in the house to explore, and he's sitting there munching on some of the barbecue from the gas station, which looks not too appetizing, if you want to ask me, to say the least. So he's out there munching on that. Looks like he's chawing on a big old dong, okay? He gets tired of waiting, so he goes and he tries to get their attention because he notices the blood smear on the van. And eventually they do all come down. They just ignore him. They act like he's crazy. He's crazier than the hitchhiker was, things like this. So of course, then Kirk and Pam want to go off and find the swimming hole that Franklin told them about. He sends them off to where it's supposed to be. There's no swimming hole. However, they do hear some noise in the background and in the distance. They hear a generator running. They run to go see maybe there's gas. Of course, there's a generator running. Maybe they have gas, right? They start snooping around. They see some cars under camo netting and stuff. Kind of weird. They go knocking on the door to the house, trying to see if anybody's inside. But then they get snoopy. They realize that nobody's answering the door, but the door is open. So Kirk decides he's going to go in and investigate and see what's going on. He hears some noises in there. He's wondering what's going on. And then, hey, there's Leatherface. Sledgehammer to the head. He starts convulsing. And then the iconic door slam that we all know and love. Of course, Pam is wondering what's going on after she's out there for a while. And then she walks up to the house in that iconic low-angle shot, to which she discovers a horror house, to say the least. In the living room, bones and skeletons and all kinds of skins and everything else all over the place. Chickens just going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in there. She starts tripping and falling all over everything, getting real up close with the body parts and all that. Leatherface finally discovers she's in there, gets a hold of her after he chases her a little bit, takes her back in, sticks her right on a meat hook, just like that, done. And that's when he first fires up the chainsaw and starts carving up Kirk right in front of her. Meanwhile, back at the van, Franklin and Sally are back at the van, and Jerry as well. Jerry decides he's going to go look for them because he's wondering what's taking so long. Franklin's starting to freak out. He's asking questions. Maybe it's that guy. Is he coming back? This, that, and the third. And Sally just keeps telling him to shut up, and she doesn't want to hear it. Once again, poor guy, you know what I'm saying? They keep writing him off. I know he's annoying and all that stuff, but you just feel bad for him at the end of the day. You know, he didn't ask for any of this. They just keep shoving him off to the side like he's nothing. He's trying to get through to Sally, you know, and Sally's just like, what do you want now? And he's just like, nothing. Never mind. You know, all sad. But then eventually Jerry doesn't come back because Jerry walks in the house thinking those two are playing pranks on him. And guess what? Here comes Leatherface after he finds Pam in a freezer, all frozen almost, frozen alive basically. She's still alive in there, or she's just twitching something, I don't know. But yeah, he sees her in there and he freaks out. Leatherface pops up out of nowhere, nails him with the sledgehammer. And Leatherface is freaking out at this point, you know. He's running through the house. He goes and he's sitting down by the window, holding his face and everything else like that. Just like freaking out, like, where are these people coming from? That's what the director, Tobe Hooper, said the idea was. Gunnar Hansen also as well has said that. You know, that was the whole idea, like, what is going on? Even as a young man watching this movie back in the day, I kind of had a sense that he was really just like bothered by people coming in the house. I did have that kind of sense about it, right? Franklin and Sally decide they're going to go looking and see where they went. At first, Sally doesn't want to push him through the woods and all that stuff, but eventually she has no choice. It's dark out at this point, and unfortunately, Leatherface pops up out of nowhere, saws up Franklin, cuts him up real good, and then Sally runs for her life. Big Leatherface and Sally chase, of course, the iconic chase through the woods, which eventually leads to going through the house one time, and she crashes through the window to try to get away from him. So he cuts up the front door. He like makes mincemeat out of the front door trying to get to her. But it all ends up, they run back through the woods, and he's chasing her through the woods, and she ends up at the gas station. And this is where the first time where we're we don't even know at this point in the movie that the hitchhiker and the old man, the cook, are even part of this thing. We don't even know that yet. She gets to the gas station and he's there and we're like, oh, okay, she's gonna be safe now. But then he starts acting really weird. And then she notices a barbecue off to the side, and the barbecue pieces, they don't look right, man. Yeah, something ain't right there. And then he pulls up, and then he's got rope and a sack and all that stuff on him, and she starts freaking out, and he starts whipping her with a broom, whipping her with the back of the broom handle until he finally gets her to knock her out with the back of the broom handle, ties her up, sticks her in the truck, and off they go. And on their way back to the house, we find out there's the hitchhiker stumbling home. We come to realize that the cook, the old man, has pretty much, he's the leader because he's beating him up in the middle of the road, telling him, what are you doing, da, 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 and arguing with him, obviously. They finally get back to the house, and we see that Leatherface now has a different mask on. It looks like an old lady mask, you know, kind of the homemaker look. Got the lady apron on and all that stuff. And he's getting yelled at and belittled by the cook as well, talking about, look what you did to the door. Look what your brother did to this door. Right? So he gets belittled and he gets bossed around a lot. You know? I mean, that's another thing. Like, did Leatherface ask for any of this? I mean, obviously he's a maniacal killer, but would he be if he wasn't raised in this environment? I don't know. All I know is they're taking advantage of somebody who's obviously got issues, okay? And Franklin in the same aspects earlier in the movie, same thing. Needless to say, Sally is now in the house and she tries to get away. It does not work. They bring Grandpa down, who I swear to God looks like a corpse they dug up out of the ground, but somehow this thing is still alive. When I was a kid and watching this, I'm like, wait, what? How is that alive? I'm like, okay, whatever. So then they're all sitting at the iconic dinner table scene, and now we see that Leatherface has changed once again into the Pretty Woman mask, and his suit and tie and all that stuff. You know, he's all cleaned up for dinner. Then they start, Sally's screaming bloody murder, so they all start screaming bloody murder, and they're hooting and hollering and going crazy. The cook, the old man, he's over there, he's laughing away, and he's laughing. Then he'll stop, and he'll be all, like, irritated by it, but then he'll start laughing again. And then stop, and he's irritated by it again. Then he tells them all to shut up, and then Hitchhiker and him get into it, and they're arguing because they do all the killing, and he does nothing but cook, and this and that. I'm not calling Hitchhiker by the name of Nubbins simply because that name wasn't even a thing in this movie. It wasn't even thought of. It wasn't in the credits. His name was Hitchhiker in the credits, and that's what I'm calling him. So I know that his name is Nubbins, but that didn't come around until like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Of course, he argues with the old man about this stuff. Eventually, they decide that Grandpa should be the one to finish off Sally, so they take her over there and try to put the hammer in Grandpa's hands. Of course, he can't hold it because he's a decrepit corpse, and Leatherface tries to help him hold it and gets a little knock on the back of her noggin there a little bit, but the Hitchhiker's not having this. He's getting tired of messing around. He wants to get the hammer and finish off the job himself. So he tries to get the hammer, and while he's doing that, lets go of Sally. Sally bursts through the window, runs off down the driveway. So of course the hitchhiker takes off after her. Here comes Leatherface, chainsaw fired up, running after her. When they get out to the road, he's sitting there slicing her with his knife in the back, like he's just sitting there slicing away at her in the back. She's getting bloodier and bloodier. Meanwhile, a semi-truck comes barreling down the road, and he's right in front of it. Boom! Runs him over, crushes him. Truck pulls over. Driver gets out, he's looking around like, what is going on? But then Leatherface comes around the other side, and then he jumps into the truck and out the other side. Leatherface comes around the other side of the truck. He grabs the driver grabs his pipe wrench out of the truck and wails it at him, hits him right in the head. Leatherface then cuts into his own leg when he falls down, injuring his leg, and they end up using that injury as a crutch throughout the other movies as the movies went on. But at that point, Leatherface gets back up, he's still going after them, and then another truck pulls up, a pickup truck, after the driver of the Black Maria, that's the semi-truck, that's what it said on the side, he's like running away down the road. Another pickup truck is coming by, sees Sally in the road, she jumps in, Leatherface is trying to saw her in the back of the truck, guy's taking off, she's laughing hysterically because she's absolutely lost it at this point, and she's just giggling and laughing and probably absolutely thrilled that she finally got out of there, but just obviously mentally all gone after all that madness. Leatherface is not happy. He's all angry. He's swinging his chainsaw left and right and up and down and just mad. Swing, 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 end the movie. Credits roll. And man, unreal. It's just like it just keeps building up and it's intense. I mean, your soundtrack is basically the chainsaw, the little noises here and there and whatnot, and the booms and the blops and the blings and all that stuff. And it's very disturbing when you don't know what to expect. You're a young kid, just rented this movie out of the video store, and you go and watch this, and it really is. It's very disturbing when you don't know what you're getting into. So, needless to say, it left an impression, and it is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, which means I gotta give it 5 out of 5 knives. That's right, 5 out of 5 knives, 100%. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Man, what a great movie. So, yeah. With that said, catch you all down the road.